Okay, happy Mother's Day for starters, to all you moms out there. And we appreciate you because we wouldn't be here without you. And that's the truth, biologically, if nothing else. I think one of the most important things about moms and mothers is I connect it back to like the mind kind of when we're doing things right, it controls the body and we're able to use it. We can be inspired or motivated, but we could also be not motivated, not inspired, and still use our mind to help us get through. And I think the moms out there, not only do they create life biologically, but they also help us sustain it, and they teach us and challenge us to grow. And I think that's one of the most important messages I could possibly share of the day. So moving on from there, and I'm so blessed to have incredible moms in my life. Mother-in-law, my mom, grandmothers on both sides, Melissa as the mother of my children, and grandparents on her side, and just incredible people that, and we're all human. So we're all, I don't want to say flawed, but we all make mistakes along the way. And so in any one given moment, if you judge somebody based on that moment, sure, it's gonna look like they're not exceptional. But if you take a look at the body of work and step back a little bit, it's a tremendous amount of things to appreciate, and we're really truly blessed. So to get on from there, one of the things I want to talk about today is, and I'm going to share this all over the place, is things that your mama probably didn't tell you, because she didn't know. Because in even the current generation, most moms are so busy with making sure that we sustain life and that we do the things that we need to do, that they're not able to look up and see all the other things that are going on, especially in small town America. I can tell you right now, the things that I'm going to tell you about, I've spoken with my mom several times about. She just can't get her head around it. And it's not because she's foolish or she's not intelligent enough. It's just because it's not real for her, because it's not in her life. And so the things that I want to share with you are things that I've learned and Melissa's learned, because we've been blessed to have some incredible people in our lives. And I'm sorry for the shaky camera. I don't have it in a holder. I'm just holding on to it because I'm in the driveway. But we've been blessed to have incredible people in our lives. And so I want to get to sharing with you the things they've shared with us. And so this might take a little while. I'm not going to share a ton. I'm just going to share some things with you that will help you get through where you're at right now. Because I know there's a lot of people that I know that are struggling because their world is getting massively disrupted. And if you're in the space of teachers, we'll start off with you. I'm going to help you understand some of the things that I've gone through as we've worked remotely over the years, over 2 decades with people. And there's some differences between teaching in person. One of the things is, and this is going to be a harsh reality, you have to deal with the fact that you've gotten used to instant gratification and instant feedback. And so you've trained and mastered the art of working in front of a live audience. Now, anybody knows, if you're a comedian and you're working in front of a live audience, you can adapt on the fly because you can see what's going on. When you're not working with a live audience that's in front of you physically, it's a little bit harder. So, that's the situation you're dealing with. And some people get really mad. Like, some people are like, oh, instant gratification. You see, I'm a little baby, like these kids that they have instant gratification. Well, no, but if that's the way that you want to frame it, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're addicted to instant gratification. The other thing that happens with instant gratification is you get that win in person. You don't get that win the same way online. Once you realize that's different, it's okay. But it's understanding the basic human needs of life too, so that you know what pushes your buttons. Is it variety? Is it certainty? Is it connection and love? Is it significance? Or is it even deeper? Is it growth? Is it contribution? And so knowing which of those 6 are the top 2 or 3 that really push your buttons, that really get your flywheel going, either good or bad, is really helpful, because then you know how to control yourself. You know how to inspire yourself. You know how to and that's where it goes back to Myers-Briggs. It goes back to understanding where and how people learn, but where and how people are inspired too. That's the other thing. How are they motivated? And when you're standing in front of somebody, you can adapt and not really know how they're motivated and still get by with it. But when they're not right in front of you and you can't read their physical language, and even on a Zoom call, you can't really, you can read up here, but you don't see everything that's going on. You don't see how they're posturing. You don't see what's going on behind you, behind the camera. They might not even be looking at you. They could be watching something on TV for all you know and have you on mute. So the point is, it's a very different environment, and unfortunately, it's one you better get used to. So I'm going to jump around here a little bit with this. The next one is, I would go to TED Talks, and I would look at Sir Ken Robinson and any one of his speeches on education. And it's probably going to hurt your feelings a little bit, and that's okay. But education's not about you. It's about the student. So let's keep that in mind. And if you're a coach out there, it's the same thing. When you're a parent, it's the same thing. It's not about me. It's about the child that I'm trying to help out. As dysfunctional as I am as a parent, it is not about me. It's about the person I'm trying to help. And in the end, if that means that I have to do something that's not very helpful for myself, but more helpful for them, maybe I need to try to find a different win-win. But I'm going to have to do what has to get done because that's the job description, right? As a parent, as a coach, as a teacher, that's what I'm there for them. So Sir Ken Robinson wrote the book, The Element, which is phenomenal. I highly recommend reading that if you're a coach, teacher, or a parent. And it talks about the fact that we all learn in different ways. We all have different talents. We all have different skills. We all have different drive, different needs, different why, different background, different DNA. And so it's understandable to have people who we don't connect with and that we just don't get, right? And also, if you're not working with them in person, it might be more difficult to work with them online. It might be easier though. And so one of the questions that I always ask myself when I'm going into a training session or coming out is, how could this be more pleasurable for the person and for me? And how could I get more out of this? And how can they get more out of this to move forward immediately? And what's the next action? Those are the three questions that I'm always asking. And I used to not ask the whole, how can it be more pleasurable thing? Because I felt like it wasn't very tough. It wasn't very gritty. And the thing is, that was just confusion. Because I was thinking about the fact that, I've seen so many people succeed and because like they were gritty, but it wasn't because they were gritty. It's because they took the next action, right? That's like saying, I've seen quotes on people being like, there's so many people that are smart, are sarcastic, that I have a high IQ. Well, are they sarcastic because they have a high IQ, or do they have a high IQ because they're sarcastic, right? Cause and effect. Which one's the cause? Which one's the effect? The chicken and the egg. The thing is, people draw the wrong connections all the time. I heard a great one. It was about like, all right, well, if an alien was observing, our planet, would they make the connection in their head that people got sick because of ambulances? Because every time somebody got hurt, there was an ambulance, right? So if every time there's someone getting hurt, there's an ambulance, is the ambulance causing the injury or the sickness? No, that'd be the wrong cause and effect. But the thing is, sorry, it's like scratch my nose. But because the thing is, like, you need to know the difference. And so the point is, back to Sir Ken Robinson, we need to be more curious and more creative than anything, because curiosity and creativity lean towards our focus and towards the things that we're excited about, that we're interested in. And you're going to do more with something that's more important to you, right? We all know where they say focus goes where energy flows, and energy flows where focus goes. It's so like vice versa. So if we know that, and we know that that's true, then how could you approach learning different? And how could you get more out of it for yourself? Because right now you're feeling probably disconnected. Why? Because you're not able to understand maybe or feel that same connection, because a lot of times teaching is co-creating. It's a situation where both people have a role, and this might also help people gain some clarity, which is also really, really helpful. Why? Because I think the best coaches that I've ever seen, that I've ever had, are ones that had a clear expectation and anticipation and ground rules and framework and said, this is what we're here for, this is what we're gonna do, who's on board? And then what's your role? And what do you expect of me? The problem is, it used to be sitting on one side of the table, teachers and coaches and parents were a boss. It's not that way, although you are in charge. It's not that way. The student, the athlete, they're a part of the team, and you are as well. So it has to be, and it's not an equal partnership necessarily, from the standpoint of like, you're the one in charge, you're the one setting the rules. But, and this is a big but, if you don't allow them to be involved in the process, then how would they ever be excited about the process? Unless they're that rare person that's a soldier, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But eventually we do need that creativity to come to the surface, because if you're going to adapt and overcome, you're going to have to either have great instincts within a situation, a great skill within a situation, or you're going to have to be able to think outside the box. And right now, let's get back to thinking outside the box, because like, if you think things are going back to the way that they were, I've got bad news for you. Change is happening right now, and it's not going back. If you're a teacher, if you're if you're a small business owner, if you think it's going back to business as usual, you're going to be a dinosaur. You will be extinct. And that's exactly the way to think about it. If you don't make some changes right now to adapt, to adjust to the situation and to the market, you'll be gone. Now, we've been working remotely with clients for over 2 decades. So when this happened, we'd already been doing stuff that others needed to do. And so everybody else panicked. We had people like not even working out, people not doing stuff, not our people because we didn't give them stuff, but people who were disrupted because they didn't understand how this would look, how it would exist. So they got that worried situation going on. They got that preoccupation because they don't know what to do. Even if they're being told, if they don't believe it's something that exists, that's real, they're going to resist it. Why are they going to resist it? Because they don't understand it. And we see this in the news all the time. Why are these crimes where we have hate crimes and stuff like that? Because they don't understand what's different to them. And so they fight what they fear because that's what they're focused on, because of misinformation and preoccupation. And so that's what's going on. And that's the only reason why hate is ever there. Hate's there because of confusion, ignorance, and just a misunderstanding of something and a lack of an ability or want to learn, because it's just easier, it's lazier to be the person I just hate that. Well, that's a pretty lazy statement. So let's get to disruption, because that's what's going on right now. Let's take it over to Peter Diamandis, a person that I've probably studied, I don't know, for over 1.5 decades now, at least. Probably a little over 2 decades, to be honest with you. In 1994, he started the X Prize, which gets us into another thing you better start learning right now. And if you're not, boy, you're way, way behind things. Because in 1995, he came up with the X Prize. Why did he come up with the X Prize? Because he was interested in being an astronaut, but he was interested in citizens getting the opportunity to go into outer space. He wanted to create a situation where that could happen. So he created the X Prize. And basically what the X Prize was, it was batching challenges. It was like one of the first challenges where we said, all right, what's crowdsourcing look like? Well, let's ask everybody for their opinion on it and for them to compete, and we'll have a competition, and the winner gets the reward of the contract. But guess what also happens for the company that's having the challenge? They get all these other people coming up with great ideas. And since 1994, that's exactly what he's figured out. Now, several years later, several decades later, people are finally figuring that out online, and that's how things are changing. And that's how education is going to change too. So you guys better pay attention. Also, by the way, sports, not essential in school. I love sports, but guess what? That's what there's clubs for. That's the exact reason. So that we have people who love and are highly educated on the sport actually coaching the sport. Not people who are highly educated in social studies or some other field. You need specialists being specialists if you want to specialize in something. And if you're playing a sport, that means you are specializing. Because in the winter, you could either choose from wrestling or basketball or whatever other sports there are in the winter. Because to be honestly, I'm not paying attention to much more. You got indoor track out there. You've got skiing. You got snowboarding. All the other things. I was just joking, by the way. But the point though is there's a need for this. And there's a reason why right now people are learning at a faster rate than they ever have before, because specialists are online providing education and taking you to that peak level. And it's gotten to that level also because of like Peter Diamandis creating situations where crowdsourcing was, it was available. People love that, sharing information to come to a greater level of awareness and consciousness and understanding of something. And that's how exponential growth and exponential learning happens. Darren Hardy talks about the compound effect, and that's a piece of it, right? And we learn bits and pieces of things, but then we don't learn the whole thing. So let's get into the 6 Ds that Peter Diamandis talks about in And well, he talked about it in his TED talk, but that's one of the basic understandings for the X Prize was him understanding like, oh my God, we get to this different level of things. And he calls it the Polaroid effect. I think maybe he says the Kodak effect, actually. No shame or hate on the Rochester area, and I know this is going to hurt a little bit, but who came up with the digital, the first digital picture? Well, it actually was the first digital camera was Kodak had it. They just decided not to do anything with it, and it was what eventually just, bankrupted them. So anyways, what are the 6 Ds and how they impact you? Let's get to those really quick. Digitize, that's the first one. Step 1 is digitize. Something that wasn't digitized before now becomes digitized. And then that obviously allows it to be communicated a lot faster and without having to have a physical presence. It happens in, the world of space, basically. Deception. It looks like at first it's not like moving fast, but it is actually moving fast, but it seems like it's moving slow. So that deception is like the deceptive speed of like it's going 1 + 1, and then all of a sudden it becomes 2 × 2 instead of 2 + 2. Then after deception, you actually have the disruption. Like right now, communication is getting disrupted. Education is getting disrupted. The way that sports is happening is getting disrupted. You might not know it, but it's happening right now. Governors, presidents, captains of industry around the planet are figuring out, how do I do this online? How do I have a conference online? How do I have our summer camp online? How do I have our, you name it, our educational platform online? How do we make sure never again that we fall short and fail because we got blindsided by something that we were told for decades was coming? We were told, we were warned by people that this would happen, but we didn't prepare. So disruption is happening. The death of the dinosaur, the extinction, right? Let's think about disruption. A CD used to be a thing until somebody came out with digital music, and all of a sudden Stephen Jobs stood there with an iPod and it was like, I can have all of your CDs right here. And people are just like, whoa, you're kidding me. No way. They didn't trust it. They didn't think it would happen. They didn't think it'd be a thing, right? It was deceptive. And then all of a sudden, who's got CDs? Not many people. They call it vintage. It's vintage if you have it, or maybe that's vinyl. I don't know. But anyways, demonetization. That's the next thing. Napster. Does anybody remember Napster? That was when basically they took the songs that you were buying and all of a sudden you started getting them for free. Although it wasn't for free, you're stealing them. But the point was, once people saw that you could take it and you could basically, skip over one of the processes, then all of a sudden you can get it for free. Like right now, there's I forget, Khan Academy. There's so many different free options for learning at such a higher level than is available. Even like if you take somebody and you just put them on Khan Academy and they're driven, and you take a driven person and put them in a high school, the person on Khan Academy they're literally gonna mop the floor with them. Like there's no shot. Because why? Because you can travel at the speed of your speed and it's free and you can do it from home. So no shot. Like you're gonna get swamped. And anybody in high school, you know that, because if you're trying to go fast in high school, you got to go at the speed of tradition, and tradition takes time. So the next thing is democratization. Democratization means everybody gets a shot at it, right? It's like YouTube right now. You want to go broadcast yourself, you need a phone, you can get on there, and it's shared with everybody. That's the difference. Like that's I skipped dematerialization. So that's where basically you used to have if you wanted to listen to music, you had to have a CD, you had to have a cassette, you had to have a record. Now, do you need one of those? No. All you need is your phone. So all of a sudden it evaporated, and it's actually something that's like radio waves, TV. It's out there. All you need is a device to receive it, and then you've got it. So it dematerialized. You used to have to go to a high school. 20 years from now, I'm going to tell you right now, 20 years from now, probably, or at some point, somebody's going to say, hey, remember when we used to go to high schools every day, at least? Because it'll take a while before it goes a different way. But like, do we need a physical location? Do we need all these other things? Probably not. Do we need a sports team to have locally? Well, we could have a club team. It doesn't have to be connected to the school. And what's wrong with homeschooling? Is that a problem? If somebody's doing really well, some of the smartest people I've met are homeschoolers. They're creative. They can work with different genders. They can work with different races. They can work with different religions. They can work with people of all sorts of different backgrounds. They get to learn how to talk with somebody who's 80, and they get to work with an 8-year-old. Like, you don't get that in a high school situation. So the point is, and like the last one was democratization. So then all of a sudden everybody gets access. It's equal access for everybody. So that's a big difference. All right, get on to the next thing, because that happens in everywhere. You said the library, all of a sudden you can go to Google. Maps, you got GPS, now you got Google Maps, you got music on the phone, you got pictures on the phone. The last thing, it really is getting through, making sure, we already talked about the instant gratification thing. I'm sure that takes you off a little bit, but like, it's understanding that like you don't have to get gritty and delay gratification. It's actually more beneficial to give yourself instant gratification right now. Like, I don't want to say assuming the win, but feeling the victory. Share it and feel good about sharing it, because you know that that does lead eventually to a win. And even you sharing it is a win. So that's the flip side of like, it's understanding stoicism on the deepest level. Stoicism wasn't about being gritty. Stoicism was actually about like understanding you're in control of your happiness. Like, you know, like Sean Akers says, the happiness advantage. It's a huge boost in productivity from being happy. It's like upwards of somewhere between 20 to almost 40% in some cases. So why not be happy? Why not experience that joy right now? And the other thing is, and this is on maybe the downside, but I want to give you a little bit of history of some of this stuff. TED Talks has been around since, I think, like June or something, 2006. I've been listening to them since the very beginning. If you want to learn from the best of the best of the best in less than 20 minutes, TED Talks is where to do it. Go dive in and learn. And the next thing to lead into, if you don't think education is going to lead to online learning, you better go pay attention to Singularity University. It's been around since 2008. Some of the smartest minds on the planet are there, and they're teaching. A lot of the stuff is free. There's a membership cost to it, but like you can learn stuff at the highest level from there, and it's not a part of like your traditional system. And most of the people who have risen to the very, very top, it's not been very traditional. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it. It's like the less than 2 or 1% of population, that's where they're at. The X Prize we already talked about in 1994. Talk about Elon Musk's OpenAI experiment. And that started in 2015, maybe. We're not even going to get into that because there's just too much time to get into that. But controlling your mind, we learned a long, long time ago about. And if you're not interested in learning how to control your mind and interested in learning about these other exponential technologies, you're going to be a dinosaur. That's the point. You will be left behind. It is going to happen. It's bigger than everybody. I'm not saying you're going to be replaced by a machine, but I tell you right now, if I'm Elon Musk and I'm sitting in California and people are telling me I can't open up my factory because I can't endanger the welfare of the workers that I have and their families and the community at large, why would I not just say, wait a second, 5 years ago, I opened a company called OpenAI. How about I just decide to make this entire place AI? How about I just have machines working with machines? Do I need humans if I have to close because of humans? I guess we won't have humans. So it's really careful, the balance that we have to be aware of. As we stand here trying to help each other, we also have to recognize there are people with technology, ideas, concepts, and strategies that if they put in place, everybody will have to be changing really, really fast from where they're at. And if you're not aware of this stuff, because you haven't had the opportunity, the drive, or the interest to actually look into these things, you're going to be blindsided and it's gonna hurt. And the thing is, everybody can't collect unemployment forever. That it's just not sustainable. We can't just stay home and not work unless we're going to work online. So with that being said, can you control the government? No, you can't. So can you control whether or not they're going to say you go back to work? Not really. You can get out there and you can try to lobby and all this other stuff. The only thing you can do if you really want to get good at things is understand the rules of the game and optimize what you can do with what you have from where you are, which is called stoicism. And that's the point. The point is right now, what's the situation? What are the circumstances? What can you do? Do that. That's what you should be doing right now. And if you're a teacher, if you're a coach, if you're somebody who's used to connecting with people in order to progress, and you're addicted to that feeling that you get from that interaction, figure out how to get that same feeling from this new interaction. And I've heard people say like, well, the teachers and the people working with kids, they're going back to work. You're all still getting paid. So you are still working. It's just not the same way that you're used to. So are you resistant to change because you think it's a better way to be in person? Or have you just not looked at the alternative and the upside of it? Because the thing is, there's so many people that I've seen that have learned incredibly online and incredibly through homeschooling, that the rules that you have for how we have to grow and how we have to do some things, they're going to change. Or you're just going to be that person sitting there stomping their feet, throwing a fit, crying over spilled milk and looking like a 2-year-old because it's not the way that you wish it was or that you want it to be or that's easiest for you. It's not really that hard to change. You just have to get focused and get clear on what you're trying to do and then do it. And if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it because you're setting a good example for the kids that you work with. And this isn't just all for teachers. This is parents too. So again, I'm not pointing fingers as a parent at the teachers and coaches. And as a teacher and a coach, I'm not pointing fingers at the parent. And we're also not pointing fingers at the student athletes. What we're saying is we're all in this together. And if we're going to get better, we better get better at getting better. Take a look at that Sir Ken Robinson speech, learn from it, study it, take notes on it, figure out how you can adapt, then go look at Singularity University. Look at what they're doing with crowdsourcing with the X Prize. Go take a look at OpenAI and see what Elon Musk's doing. Check out what Bill Gates has going on. Look at what's being so successful with Netflix. Look at like all the online platforms that are doing conferences and summits. And there's so much free information right now. If you really want to be a leader in your field, if you're not already, you could be in a very short period of time. And that's exponential growth. We're seeing things get collapsed. And it's not just businesses, but it's also learning curves because they have to, but also because they can.